All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, Adrian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dave. DJ Dave. Welcome. I'm Adrianne Jones, Chief Admissions Officer for PCOM, resident host, and DJ AJ for this event. For more than a century, founded in 1899, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine has trained highly competent caring physicians, health practitioners, and behavioral scientists who practice a whole person approach, treating people, not just symptoms. Visit us at www.pcom.edu to learn more about our academic programs and services. Today, SOAR, which stands for Supporting Others as We Rise, presents the Expat Experience of African American Women. This is our bookend event to our last event in February for Black History Month, which was the Expat Experience of African American Men. Thank you, PJ Greer, for putting together this idea. SOAR is a staff-focused employee resource group sponsored by the Office of Diversity and Community Relations. It was formed in response to Black employees' request for a safe space. In this space, SOAR members will be able to express our authentic selves, all manners of emotions, and be an ear when needed. Our members will be able to form connections that offer support and encouragement, as well as opportunities for conversation, programming, and inspiration as we work toward one PCOM. As SOAR evolves, our goal is to connect with allies and advocates of like mind, increasing our membership to anyone who supports our endeavors. With that said, I'd like to welcome my lovely co-host, Dr. Deborah Robinson from the University of Michigan.
Hi, everybody. We're so glad you could join us today. I'm a research investigator at the University of Michigan Institute for Social Research, and I'm the director of #WeGlobal, African Americans Living Abroad. So if you are living abroad and you're with us today, or you know someone, please go to aalivingabroad.org. I'll put it in the chat, and participate in this online survey we're doing to really get a sense and get the stories of African Americans who are currently living abroad. So we have a fabulous panel for you today. And so what I'd like to do is ask our panelists to introduce themselves, say a little bit about who they are, what they're doing in the country where they are, and just talk a little bit about the journey that got them to where they're living now. And I'll just go with who I see on the screen. So first we'll go with Nicole, then Angela, and then Faye. So Nicole, why don't you give us introduction and a little bit about your journey to Oman?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Deborah. Well, as you said, I'm Nicole Brewer, and I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I'm actually a UMich U of M grad, go blue. Yeah, I actually studied communications in college. And as you know, I'm currently based in Oman. I've actually been here for about 7 years now. And prior to coming to Oman, I was teaching English in South Korea. And it's quite interesting how my journey began, because it's actually been over a decade now. Back when we had the first recession, back in around 2009 is when I left the US to start my expat journey. I only planned to go to South Korea for 1 year, and then here we are over a decade later, and I'm still trotting around the globe because I just love this lifestyle so much. So it's just interesting how I started off on a path thinking that I would only be here for a year, and I kept renewing my contract. I stayed in Korea for 3 years. And then after that, I was interested in a new experience, and it doesn't get much more different than leaving East Asia to go to the desert. And I obviously like it because I'm still here. So that's where I'm at right now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Angela.
Hi. My name is Angela Fobbs, and I currently live in Germany, and I've been living here for about 20 years now. My journey is not as, I don't know, maybe not as interesting as as Nicole's journey, but I never actually thought that I would live outside of the United States. I was interested in travel, but I wasn't interested in necessarily living outside of the United States. I was on a business trip and I met someone and that just happened to live in Germany. And after we had been dating for quite some time, I decided Actually, he decided he wanted to move to the United States. And I thought, no, I think I want to experience life in another country. So I decided to move here. I've had a lot of interesting experiences while I've been living here. And it's, in a way, Germany, it's sort of like America, but the better parts of America. Yeah, I've been living here for 20 years and I worked for the Army, the US Army, for about 10 years. And I've been teaching English, and I've also been doing political work with Democrats abroad for the past 4 years. And that's been very important to me because it was important that we put our country back on a better path. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Could you just say a word about the Global Caucus?
Yes. Okay. So the Global Black Caucus was started in 2017, and it is a place where we advocate for African Americans abroad and at home and the issues that are important to them. It's open to everyone. So whether you're African American or not, as long as you believe in universal human rights, you're more than welcome to join us. And yeah, we've had a lot of interesting projects over the past 3 or 4 years. In fact, Deborah was just in our Black History Month Marathon, which was a 12-hour presentation of Black history from a lot of different aspects. If you want to join the caucus, or if you're interested in finding out more about it, I'll put the link in the chat so you can find out more.
Great. Thank you, Angela. Nikki Faye. Do you go by Nikki? Do you go by Faye?
Nikki Faye, one word.
Okay.
So I'm Nikki Faye. I guess I'm the baby of the group because I have lived abroad for only 5 years. And I worked in corporate America for, oh my gosh, like many, many years. And so I decided 5 years ago, after in my job, I was doing $1 million deals on a regular basis. And I'm just like, man, I wonder how this corporation, CEO or the person who owns it, how their family lives. And I would always daydream about what they will be living like, what they will be doing. I was like, they're probably somewhere on an island somewhere, just enjoying life while I'm here making millions of dollars for them. And a lot of us were, so that's billions of dollars. So one day I started following a traveler. She's a very popular travel blogger. And I'm like, oh my God, someone's actually living this lifestyle. So I started to do research on her. And I'm like, man, that's interesting. She's able to do this. I was like, I know she said that, she does this and, she kind of travels by trip, and she's not wealthy, but she probably is. She just doesn't want to tell us. So after a while, I was like, this is really great. I was traveling so much. And I was just like, you know what? I would love to live a life like this if I didn't have bills to pay. And then one day my mom got really sick and she passed away, and she passed away at 57. Her dream, just like mine, was to travel the world and explore when she retired, and she didn't make it. She passed away at 57 years old. And so it was at that moment I decided, I was like, I don't care what I'm leaving behind. I'm leaving today to discover a life I love and stop just, living on, work, sleep, eat, repeat, So I was just like, I have to stop living this life because there is another life that I want for myself, and I can't wait because tomorrow's not promised. So I moved abroad, and I really didn't have a career plan at all, but I saved a significant amount of money. And so once I moved abroad, I just started opening businesses that I thought, it worked with my passion and my skill set. And so I started doing business, and I had never been an entrepreneur before then. But, I think for me, I use my entrepreneurial experience, that experience that you have building your department, building, whatever piece or project that you have at your job. So I use that. And I then used those skill sets, and I moved abroad and started working businesses, and, they just began to grow, and, they just excelled. And so I've just continued to do it because nothing happened where it all fell apart and I had to come back home. But so I'm very thankful to be here today.
Great. Adrian, do you have a question?
I do. So, you know, the big question we all want to know is what about a couple of things? Living abroad, tell us a little bit about how it's related to issues about your hair, food, dating, you know, give us the scoop.
You're talking to me?
You can start. Why don't we go in reverse order?
Okay. For me, my hair, well, I live in Kenya, so it's easy. Well, in a way, because the braids are great, as you can see now, I'm wearing braids, but doing like my natural hair is a bit challenging because they don't do it to the way I'm accustomed to. I've lived in 5 other countries as well, and some were European countries, Indonesia and some other countries, but you know, in every country, there was always someone who could braid. So I'm fortunate in that I've been literally wearing braids for the past 5 years. I always tell people, and this is a true story, I literally tendered in over 50 countries as I traveled. And all that tendering led up to a partner. So now I'm partnered from Tinder. So that's worked out too.
See, I'm not even hip. I didn't know what you were talking about. Tendering and Tinder. Okay, so yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
And you're hooked up now. So good. Congratulations.
And how about the food?
The food in Kenya they have an interesting, I love their style of cooking. It's just their seasoning is a bit different from ours, like in that they don't use salt. So that's my only challenge. So I'm always like, okay, let me just eat at home because I know how I want the food salted. And so that's the only challenging thing. Also, I love seafood, and there isn't access to seafood in the way that I would like it to be in Nairobi. If I lived on the coast where I'm at now, it'd be great because they have plenty of seafood, but I live in the city. And we don't have much seafood. Like, for example, like this small piece of salmon in the US would be like $5. Here, that same piece is like $20. So it can be challenging. And the food in Kenya is actually relatively expensive if you're looking for, you know, the higher quality food. So, you know, it can be a bit of a challenge, but we have access to everything, but we pay a premium for it.
Ah, that's great advice. Thank you, Nikki Faye. Angela? What about Germany?
I have to say, when I first arrived in Germany, my hair was a challenge. Like, it was a major, major challenge. Things have gotten over the years, things have gotten a lot better. There are more products coming from America and other places for African American hair. But I've been really lucky that probably, I don't know, about 2 years into me living here, I found a hairdresser. She's actually, she's from Ghana, and I've stuck with her the whole time. She's moved from place to place, and I've followed her because she's awesome. And I'm never gonna let her go. She's a really great woman, and without her, I think I would be lost. But one of the good things, like I said, things have opened up a lot in Germany as far as hair products for people that are not white, and hair salons, and even beauty supply. So there's plenty of that here. You won't ever have to worry. And the other good thing is that even if you can't find it in a shop, you can buy a lot of stuff on Amazon. The German version of Amazon has products that you can order. So that makes it a lot easier now. It wasn't that way in like the year 2000. It was not that way at all, but now it is. As far as food goes, a lot of people like German food. They do. A lot of people.
But you're not one of them?
I like some of it. And I've become, in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I became a vegetarian. So it's a little bit different. And so I'm not a vegan because I would never eat anything. Like, that's just not possible. Yes, pommes frites. Yeah, I like fries, but I like to eat other stuff too. But yeah, there's just, it's as far as vegetarian and vegan goes, it's really starting now. Like in the past couple of years, like there's a lot more push towards these type of foods or products that you can buy in the store. I would say for the most part, okay, and we're in a pandemic right now, so I'm not going anywhere. Like there's no restaurants or anything to go to. But I can at least order something if I wanted to at a restaurant. Like most restaurants have at least one vegetarian dish. But overall, I mean, I would have to say overall, I don't dislike German food, but I like other foods better. Let's just put it that way.
Awesome. And is it just you, or do you have?
No, it's not just me. I got married about 4 years ago. I got married about 4 years ago, and I'm actually married to an American that I met here. One thing about Germany is that we're not, by any stretch of the imagination, we are not a majority of people, Americans in general, in Germany. But there are lots of military bases here, and other companies and agencies from the United States. So you can meet lots of people from all over the world. I just happened to have met an American and married one. The man that I moved over here for, he was German. Mm-hmm. A lot of people like to marry Germans. So I would, if you find someone that's German and you like them, I'm sure it's perfectly okay. It just didn't work out that way for me.
And I'm so glad you got married to the right person.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
And Nicole, what about you?
I'm up next. Let's see. My hair journey. Well, yeah, luckily for me, when I first came to Oman, I used to go to Dubai quite often because, we're neighbors right next door. It's like a 5-hour drive, 45-minute flight. So I would go to Dubai often, literally to let my hair down, or I would go to get braids there quite often before I knew that there were actually more options here in Oman. Learning about like the Zanzibari, Omani relationship, there are actually more salons that cater toward like our hair type. So I actually have a stylist now that I found at a salon in Muscat. I live in Niswood, which is a little over an hour outside of the capital. So I would go to Muscat on the weekend and get my hair done. My stylist, she's Ugandan. And yeah, there's a nice like African population here. So, I am able to get access to beauty and hair care products now. Even in the grocery stores here, like you can find a relaxer, which used to blow my mind when I first got here. I was like, oh, who knew? But, because like the women wear abayas and you never see their hair. So I didn't know like some of them have, hair like mine. But, prior to coming to Oman when I was in South Korea, I lived in Busan and I used to go to Seoul to get my hair done there as well, because they had like a little area they called it Little Africa. And so like there was, a lot of hair care products. And like even before going to South Korea, I joined the Brothers and Sisters South Korea group and I was like, where can I get my hair done? So thank goodness for social media. Like I learned that even prior to landing there. That's always a biggie for us. So regarding dating, I have stories for days, but I will say, I went through my experiences in South Korea, which were quite interesting, mostly dating African men. And those are some interesting times. But now here in Oman, I'm actually dating a Sudanese man. So, who I actually met at a networking event a couple years ago obviously prior to COVID when networking events were in person were a thing. But we met at a Internations networking event, which is actually, a German-based company. I don't know, Angela, familiar, but I was actually in school in Germany for a year in grad school. And I was going to mention, you mentioned pommes frites and currywurst, made me think about my days there because I didn't eat a lot of red meat. So that was challenging. So I can relate to that struggle. But here in Oman, they're really big on like Arabic and Turkish food, Lebanese food, which I love. I don't eat red meat or pork. So I'm in a good location, obviously, the Middle East. There's not a lot of pork here, like a lot of Americans who are interested in pork. There are specialty grocery stores that you can go to. And it's quite interesting because like my friends who do eat pork, at the special, there's like a black curtain that you have to like go into and like, it has like a sign or whatever, like a little hidden section in the back of that particular grocery store. So, I just wanted to touch on that. That's not my struggle. But I know a lot of Americans are like, oh, I spend like so much money to get imported in, but for them it's worth it. For me, I don't eat it, so it's not, I don't have a problem. But yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, Deborah, back to you.
Yeah. So March, this is now a year into the pandemic. And I wanted to just ask each of you, what is it like on the ground there? What's happening with vaccine, access to vaccine? Someone mentioned they're in their third spike. And the reason this came to me, and let me just preface this by saying, globally, African Americans have formed different kinds of groupings and organizations. So in Ghana, for instance, it's a very structured traditional organization, African American Association of Ghana. They have elected officers, they have dues, they meet every third Sunday at their building. In Kenya, in Nairobi, there's Still We Rise, a WhatsApp group, a very active WhatsApp group. And so messages were flying today about what's happening with some new restrictions that Nikki Faye could talk about. There's so many brothers and sisters Facebook groups of brothers and sisters of Kuwait, two brothers and sisters of Thailand, Northern Thailand, Southern Thailand. So I just wanted to ask each of you kind of what's happening on the ground and your access to vaccines and access in the country, because that's also an issue that, a lot of developing countries aren't getting the vaccine, or people are saying that, hey, as crazy as it is here in the US to get the vaccine, it's even crazier in Europe. So if you guys could share on that. Why don't we start with Angela this time?
Okay, well, I'm never going to get a vaccine because the rollout for vaccines in Germany and in most of Europe is incredibly slow. I think only like 4% of people have had a vaccine. It's kind of driving me a little bit crazy. Our daughter finally, my husband's daughter, she is a teacher and she finally got a vaccine yesterday. I think it was yesterday or Tuesday. But that is really a fluke. And basically they have 3 categories. Like there was like the people that are ill or medical professionals, or if you're over 80. And then the second category was like 70 and some other sort of things. And then the third category is like people that are 60 and above, and then there's everyone else. So what people don't know about Germany is that unlike a lot of countries in Europe, we have a large population. We have almost, I think it's like 88 million people live in Germany. So it's not like, some other countries that maybe have like 5 million people living in them where, you're just going to have to wait your turn. It could take, at the rate that we're going, it could take like years. Hopefully things will speed up as far as, because the United States has taken a lot of the vaccine. So other countries aren't getting it. So maybe once we kick up our vaccine production here, a few of the other pharmaceutical companies here have decided are going to start manufacturing the Pfizer vaccine. Yeah, but I don't feel hopeful about it. I'm just happy that I have a reasonably comfortable home to stay in and that I can do most of my work from home. So just waiting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nikki Faye, you have an interesting story about this.
So in Kenya, we've actually had it. We were on lockdown for the first 4 to 5 months of the pandemic, and we've literally been on curfew for over a year. So since March of 2020, we've been on curfew. So we've been relatively regulated fairly well. And recently our curfew dropped to 10 p.m. And so that made like all the bars and clubs reopen. And so instead of closing at 10 p.m., they were locking everyone inside the club until 4 a.m. and then they will release you, which is a huge hotbed for COVID. So today, because cases are spiking, I'm actually on the coast right now. I live in Nairobi, the city, but I'm on the coast. And they actually implemented a lockdown today. So as of midnight tonight, no one is allowed to come in or out of about 5 different counties, including the county I live in, and I'm outside of that county. So we're just trying to figure out how we'll get back to town, because a couple of friends are visiting me for my birthday from out of the country, from the US and South Africa. So, you know, we're just trying to sort through that. But even with the situation, I still view myself as very fortunate, because we only have about 15,000 active cases in the country. And when I compare it to other countries, I'm like, okay, well, we're doing pretty good. So I'm not panicked, but I'm just worried how I might get home. But as far as COVID is concerned, like, I feel like, you know, the country's been doing pretty well. It's just lately, you know, that spike has, you know, happened to us. But I'm still feeling really confident as well, because the vaccine rollout is going pretty well. Like I didn't know how it would go. And, you know, I've gotten a list of every facility I can get the vaccine in. And, you know, I've opted to go back to the States to get my vaccine, but at least there are options for people who do want to get their vaccines here. They're just using the vaccine that a lot of countries have, you know, banned from their countries, that AstraZeneca one. So I was just like, I don't know about that one, but, you know, at least they have access to it. So I think, you know, I'm gonna just fly back and get, I'm really interested in that Johnson & Johnson, because I hate shots. So one is enough for me. But I'm just happy that, you know, these things are rolling out and they are being precautious, even if it's just 15,000 cases, because that's a lot for us. So I'm actually happy with the way they're handling the pandemic, and I'm happy about the vaccine rollout. So things are going fairly well here, other than me being stuck on the coast.
And then could you say a word? Because I saw this on the, it seemed to, what it was saying was that the US Embassy is not assisting or won't be providing vaccines for US people.
No, they haven't done anything to help us or any process. I think they've forgotten about us, quite frankly. We've called the embassy and they're like, no, we don't have anything for you. And I know they're vaccinating, you know, their staff, and, you know, the UN, they're getting the vaccines, but I don't know if we just, you know, I think maybe like they just forgot about us. Like, you know, you make all these arrangements and you don't quite think about everything, but maybe at some point we will become an afterthought and they'll send some vaccines here for us. But I don't know, it's yet to be seen, but hopefully they will help us out. And I won't have to fly to the US to get a vaccine.
Wow. Yeah. Nicole, and what is the US Embassy doing anything there for other people outside of military and State Department types?
It's interesting because I actually I didn't even consider like contacting the embassy about the vaccine, because like I'm looking at the rollout plan that Oman has right now. I mean, we're a small country with only a population of 5 million. And, you know, looking at their big brother next door, UAE, they've already vaccinated about 2 million people. Like, they are really moving. And we vaccinated, well, Oman has vaccinated 100,000. So like 2% of the population so far. So it is quite daunting, like considering how they are, you know, obviously focusing on the higher risk category. I think phase 2 is anyone 60 and over and with certain pre-existing conditionings. I think phase 3 is going to be starting soon, but I have no idea when. And I got excited because recently I had read an article saying that teachers are going to be like given priority. And obviously, you know, I'm a teacher. I'm a lecturer at a university here. However, one of my friends recently went to the clinic just last week and asked about that. And he was told that school teachers are given priority right now. So we don't know when university lecturers are going to be in that category because we're teaching online and students are still coming to the school. So I understand obviously a higher priority, but it's been a pretty slow rollout with that. So that is something for me to consider. But I don't think like expats are on the list. So I don't think that the embassy really is going to like have a list for us, but that's something to consider. I can look into.
And are children, I mean, school children in in class, or is it virtual?
Well, that's the thing. We recently had a spike. So they are like there was a couple students who were exposed. And so like a handful of schools, they actually had mandated that they had to go back online, but they had given parents the option, I think just of like maybe January or February, if they wanted to do blended learning. So some of them were going to the schools and some of the a lot of them were online, but now they shut it down for the next 2 weeks. We actually, similar to Nikki, we have a curfew that's getting ready to start on Sunday this week because Ramadan is coming up in a couple weeks. And around this time last year is when our spike, when it went up. And the numbers were going down, but they're noticing an increase. So they're going to intact curfew for, they're saying 2 weeks, but we know how it goes. Last year, it started for 2 weeks and then they kept extending it. And at one point they even had us locked into our cities. Like, you know how I go to Muscat on the weekends? I couldn't even go to Muscat. I had to stay in Missoula. So we're kind of like, is that going to happen again? But it's just basically based on hospitalizations and numbers. So keeping my eyes on that.
Well, thank you.
We've got some
Adrianne,
questions in the chat.
yes, I was going to do exactly that to help you guys along, Adrianne and Deborah. One question is, what are race relations like where you all live? For those who have lived in Africa, have you experienced discrimination? And that's from Karen Barton to anyone.
Okay, I'll just answer quickly about Germany. I would say that race relations that varies upon your nationality, honestly. As an American, I don't really have any problems. I mean, you know, every now and then you run into a jerk, but the overall situation is not anywhere close to how it is in America. But I mean, it's not perfect or anything. Like, I don't want people to think that people don't experience any kind of discrimination or anything like that. But it really more, at least where I'm living, it seems to have to do with like your status. You know, there is a lot of people that are refugees that have come here, which it was really great that Angela Merkel let all these people come here. But there's a lot of hostility in some places towards refugees. But overall, I would say that if you've lived in America and you came here, you would just be like, woo, that's a relief. You know, like, wow, I'm so glad that I'm not in America having to deal with all the BS that happens there. Yeah.
Anyone else?
And chime in. Actually, just to kind of piggyback off of what Angela was saying, it's similar here in Oman. Like I was saying prior, there is like an African Omani population here. So, you know, I personally, as an American, same as Angela, I haven't experienced any problems. Like I'm actually, you know, well accepted here as an American, but I know, you know, honestly speaking, like if I were like of an African descent, like maybe Kenyan or, you know, something outside of like Zanzibar, which are some of what the Omanis are, I've heard stories, you know, obviously there's been some issues with, so I think it's more like so of a classism thing. They're just like, oh, you have an American passport, you know, speak English, you know, they give you in high regard in that sense, but you know, it's not perfect, but Oman is a very safe country. I'm happy here. Like I said, I've been here 7 years, so obviously it's been good for me, but you know, it's not a utopia, but I would say it's been a good experience for me personally. So
Thank you. Nikki, do you want to chime in or should I go to the next question?
You know, I live in Africa, so.
It's not an issue. All right. Dr. Price is asking, phenomenal stories and so proud of each of you for your courage and success. And I second that. Could you talk a little bit about your experiences handling U.S. taxes and also voting?
I personally, I vote absentee ballot for every election. It's a bit easier for me because I just kind of fill out the paperwork and my sister drops it in the box. But as far as taxes, I still have to file taxes every year as an American, even though I'm living abroad, because, you know, we still get those nice cushy benefits abroad. So we still have to pay our taxes.
Well, we still have to file our taxes. That's the thing. Yeah, I've been abroad over a decade. I file every year. We file. However, since I am living out of the country, like I know when I file, I usually say, you know, I'm out, and it's not, I say it, I'm out of the country over 300, and there's a certain amount of days that you have to be out of the country where you're not actually paying into like the American tax system. And so that's the case for me. So like I definitely file every year, and you know, was able to get that nice, lovely stimulus, even though I'm over here out of the country, just like everyone else. So I was very grateful for that. But and I also the same. I vote abroad. You know, it's nice to see Angela here for Democrats abroad. I actually, you know, this election season, I was getting those calls from DC. I was looking at my phone and I was like, 212. This is America. Like I'm answering, I was like, this is Democrats abroad calling me. So I was quite impressed with that rollout system. But yeah, you go, you know, your absentee ballot, take it to the embassy and vote. So yeah, I don't have any problems with that.
And tax filing has been extended for a month this year, in case you haven't noticed. Our current president, I think it's May 15th or 17th or something like that. Okay, another question from Janice. Are most of your family still in the States prior to the pandemic, before the pandemic? How often did you return home?
Wow. Yeah, most of my family, all of my family, except for my husband and our children, live in the United States. And I would say that has varied over the time. Before the pandemic, I would say I was like a once a year person. I know there's people that go there all the time, but I'm not one of them. Sorry. And I see my mom is out there, so sorry, Mom. It's not, in fact, before the pandemic, you know, all the shutdown, I had planned to meet, we were having a meeting in Canada, and I had planned to meet various members of my family there for like a, you know, just kind of like an impromptu vacation. And I'm so sad that that I haven't seen my family in so long. So I wish I could have a vaccine and travel for sure.
Anyone else?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Nikki. You can go.
For me, I like to travel so much that I rarely go back home, which was really sad for me when the pandemic happened, because I was like, okay, you know, it's been about, I don't know, 2 years now. So I'll go ahead and go back home. And then the pandemic happened. So now it's 3 years. And now I'm like, I only want to go home. So I think it's very important to make at least the annual visits to home, because you do get homesick. And now I'm just missing like anything like Chick-fil-A and grocery stores and, you know, little silly things that, you know, I'm used to from home. But so I certainly am a little homesick now. So I would love to go home, but it's been 3 years for me and I don't have a normal travel schedule to go back home.
Thanks. Nicole?
Yes, you know, as a teacher, I usually get leave in the summers, like about 2 months of vacation. So I tend to go home at least once a year. And I'm fortunate when I am able to go home, I can spend about a month or so, give or take, because I am a travel blogger similar to Nikki. Like I love to travel. So I usually break it up and travel somewhere for a couple of weeks and then hop from that country back to the USA. So the struggle is real. This summer, like this past summer, I had to stay in Oman. I couldn't leave the country. And I was like, what am I going to do? I've never spent, in 7 years, that was my first summer in the desert where it got to well over 100 and something or another. And then, the struggle. So yeah, my family is fortunate because I usually am able to come home every year. So now it'll be 2 years as of this summer since being home. So as we say here, inshallah, I can make it happen this summer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question is, what about citizenship or permanent residence status?
I don't have citizenship or permanent resident status. I am a resident, but it is temporary until I can't apply for residency until 3 years from now, and I can't apply for citizenship until 7 years from now. So it's a process and a journey.
You intend to?
I would love to. So I will definitely keep applying and see if everything works out. However, I have a friend who's been here for 20 years and she still doesn't have hers. So I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed.
I don't have citizenship or permanent residency either. The main reason that I don't is because for the time that I would say at this point, the majority of the time that I've been living here, I worked for the US government. So you don't have a visa or anything. You just, as long as you have a US ID card, then you can be here. So it kind of threw me off with that, that whole process. I'm hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be a permanent resident, hopefully. I don't know about citizenship. I never really thought about it until Donald Trump. And I thought I needed a place to, I needed a safe place,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'm still going to do that or not.
Yeah, I am actually in Oman on a work visa, working here at a university setting. Permanent residency, the only way I can see that being a viable option here as an American is if you have the money, like if I were to invest and open a small business. I know that's one avenue, but I don't know exactly how much the cap is on the business. If you invest in real estate, that's an option, but just living here as an American and applying for permanent residency, unless I'm invested into the country, that's really the only way to do it. Since I've been gone out of the States for over a decade now, honestly, I don't see myself living back in the US. So I'm trying to figure out what my game plan is going to be. I'm considering Portugal. I know that's an option for residency in the future. So I'm just trying to save because you basically can get if you have money, you can get residency in almost anywhere. So, or invested into a business. So that's something that I'm considering for my retirement goals, my plan. It's Portugal, inshallah.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. So there are many questions, Deborah and Adrianne, in the chat box. Should I continue, or do you guys have?
Let me ask one.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, I didn't know which Fobbs that was, but if your mother is still on, I wanted to know if she'd be willing to share with us what it's been like for her to have a daughter away. Is she still on? And is she, Mrs. Fobbs, are you willing?
I think she's still here. Although maybe yeah, she's here, Mom. Do you want to say something? You don't have to go on camera if you don't want. Or you can just continue to ignore me. Whatever is easier.
You got to come on home and then she'll answer.
Yeah, I know.
All right, Mrs. Fobbs, if that's not what you want to do, but you have a unique perspective here, and I thought.
Hello.
Oh, good.
Oh, yay.
I couldn't unmute. I'm sorry. I was having a little technical difficulty.
Oh, no problem. So what is it from your perspective? The good, the bad, how has it been for you to have a daughter away for so long?
Well, she's happy, and I'm happy for her. I miss her. Obviously, I would miss her. She was everything to me. But I have a son who is here, so that's some consolation. But I regret that we are not able to see one another as often as I would like. You know, I miss the contact. But I'm happy that she's happy.
Good. Well, thank you so much.
I miss you too, Mom.
No.
I miss you, baby.
I'm fine with going to more of the questions.
Okay. So Jermaine asks, I'm a New York City school counselor, months away from retirement. Lucky you, Jermaine. What advice would you have for someone like me that has no idea where to live abroad and how to start a new career? And the second question is, what kind of resources are out there to get started?
Well, I would say if you're looking to settle in a new country, just try, the places that are open now to you as an American, try to travel there and experience what life is like there. If you can stay longer term, I know lots of people are working remotely. So if you can stay longer term right now, so many people are getting that experience abroad right now because they're having the opportunity to work abroad. So I think that's the first step. And then the next step from there is that now companies are aware that you can work from home and you still get work accomplished and, the business continues. So that's a great moment to put in that ask to say, hey, can I continue to work from home? This is actually working. I'm more productive. And you add those extra layers of, support to that statement, that ask. But I think, those are the first two steps as far as that. If you are looking to start your own business or something like that, I would say it's much easier abroad because the expense of living abroad, it's so much less than the US that you can actually take that chance and take that risk. I mean, for me, as long as I've been abroad, my budget for my monthly expenses has been $1,000 and I've lived in 5 different countries. So now if my budget is $1,000 a month, I can get some easy, work online job or do some freelancing gigs online in order to support myself while I figure out my entrepreneurial journey, which is what I did. So I didn't know what I was doing. I started teaching English online. I was also doing an online sales job, which was making enough money plus some to cover my expenses. And in my expenses, I have also entertainment and, more than just the basics. It's rent, it's phone, it's everything I have, plus entertainment, eating out, all those things are included in that $1,000 a month. So it gave me kind of the wiggle room to figure it out. And so I think, if that's the journey, you want to be on, you should look into resources that support that. I have a group called Blacks at Tribe, and we support people who are looking to move abroad and just giving them information and resources, advice. There are about 13,000 plus people who are a member of this group. It's just a Facebook group, Blacks at Tribe, but we give tons of resources. I also have a company that I started called Someday Started Today because, lots of people are putting off things for tomorrow, but I try to encourage people to let your someday start today. And I teach people how to be digital entrepreneurs, but there's so many opportunities to work online. Like a friend of mine just posted like 2 days ago, she hit her first $1 million USD on Upwork. So she sold that much on Upwork, and I'm sure she didn't have that earning potential at her job. So there's so many opportunities and websites just like that where you can, post your services and, make a sufficient amount of money, a lot of money. She's made $1 million, but, there's so many opportunities like that, and also other remote jobs that, especially if you're looking at, these companies these days, like more people are so open to it. So there've been remote jobs. I feel like I was late to the party, but, there are also companies who are now more open to it. So I feel like now the world is your oyster if you're looking to follow this path.
Wow.
Wow, thank you, Nikki. How about Angela or Do you have anything to add? Any?
I would say, okay, when I moved, I didn't have a job, although I looked for one before I got here and it just didn't work out. Just maybe you should visit the places first just to figure out if this is really somewhere you'd like to be. You know, everything looks good in pictures and in videos. That's what they do. That's how they make it look. But I mean, there's a lot of places that since I've been living in Europe, I know that I wouldn't want to live. Um, you know, a lot of people like Italy and it sounds super romantic, but it's not normal like how business is conducted there. And I don't want to say that everything is like on a mafia basis because it's not, but they have a culture of like you kind of have to bribe people to get them to do stuff like just normal stuff, like you want your telephone installed or your electricity turned on. You might have to give the person a little extra money, like that's to set it up, that's the person that's supposed to be just making the appointments or something. It's not always so black and white like how things are. So I would say go there, maybe join some groups to find out ask some questions, see what problems other people had. Yeah, because not every place is nice. Like it might seem nice, but it's not.
And Facebook is a good resource too. I think someone mentioned that there are many Facebook groups abroad by country. So for the counselor who's searching, you can always start there.
And I would say also, like I'm putting in the chat, Black Americans living abroad. There's, I think, African Americans abroad. You know, there's country specific, and then there are kind of global Facebook groups where, you know, you could post anything and they're always giving advice about, you know, what you should consider. So there's a lot more information about making that move now than, let's say, 20 years ago.
Yeah. So moving on, Nicole, I'm sorry, do you have something to add?
Actually, Deborah literally took the words right out of my mouth. I was getting ready to mention BALA, Black Americans Living Abroad. And I typed in the chat to a couple links, like one to my book,
Okay.
Teaching English Abroad, and I Love the Globetrot. But Facebook, research. Like that's really my advice. But
Absolutely.
yeah, they hit the nail on the head already. So.
Okay, so the next question has to do with language. How was overcoming the language barrier dealt with in your new adopted country in terms of understanding, reading it, communicating it?
Well, when I arrived in Germany, I took 3 semesters of intensive German, and it's like 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, or maybe it was 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, but it was very intensive. And it took me, I want to say I started in January taking the courses, and by August, I think it was August. Yeah, I actually, I was on a vacation and it was in Austria, and we were going somewhere, and like we were going to go whitewater rafting. And the guy that was like one of the owners or something, or that worked at this place, was driving me and my friend to the rafting place. And he was speaking in German to my German boyfriend. And he told a joke. And I laughed and I was like, shit, I understand. Oh my God. Like I did it. Like, and yeah. And that was like, I mean, it took like months and months and months, but I understood, and that kind of fueled my desire to learn more and be better at it. So it's possible. Yeah.
Nicole or Nikki?
To be honest, you know, considering how long I've been in Oman, I should be fluent in Arabic, but Arabic is not the easiest language to learn. So I will admit I know some phrases here and there, but I haven't really invested like the time to study it hardcore because English, like it's taught from when they're small until the college. Obviously, I'm a college lecturer, so I know that everyone has a grasp of English, and it's everywhere. So I don't really have a problem getting around throughout the country with only English. So but yeah, I haven't taken the time to study Arabic. But I know there are possibilities to take classes and intensive, like Angela said.
Yeah, and Nikki, I'm assuming, is Kenya a English speaking country or?
Yeah, we are an English speaking country, thankfully, but
Mhm.
most people speak Swahili and some can't speak English depending on if they were educated. So it's quite easy for me. However, I've lived in Spanish speaking country and a Turkish speaking country, and I still find it's very easy for me because no matter where you go, most people can speak at least a little English. So I guess I've been given a pass throughout my travels.
Okay, then there's a question from Alana about your decision to move abroad. When you were deciding to move abroad, did you get pushback from family members? For example, some family members always say things like, there are so many people who need help in America. Why do you need to leave?
I mean, we've moved abroad for the specific purpose of helping people. I think those things kind of come organically as you're moving about and you want to make a difference in the places where you are. But for me, my family, they were like, okay, see ya. But my mom probably would have been the one to give me pushback, and she had, passed away. So it was just really my sister and my dad, and they were like, okay, great. Call us when you get there. So not much at all for me.
You want to go, Angela?
No, I can wait.
Okay. Well, in my case, initially when I left the States, like I was saying before, I was actually laid off from my job. It was during the recession. So I was laid off from my job. So when I first decided to leave, I didn't plan on staying gone for a decade. Like I thought I would, go to South Korea, teach English, save some money, and come back later when the economy gets better. And I realized that this was the lifestyle I liked. I wanted to continue being abroad. So if I had gotten flack, that was my choice to make. It's no one else's choice to make. But luckily for me, like my family, everyone was like, yeah, go. And now that they see like the life I'm living, my mom, she always tells me like, you made the right choice. If I were you, I'd stay. Like she's my biggest cheerleader. So I'm very grateful that my family understands like this is the lifestyle that I enjoy. And, I have been able to give back and travel in the world and just really and invest in my dreams and goals of living abroad. So yeah, my family is very supportive in that aspect.
Angela?
I don't know. I don't know if my family is supportive or, I mean, nobody ever said like, when are you coming home? So I can only assume that either it's so terribly painful for them that I'm gone, or that they just figured I would do whatever I wanted to do. So no need to like challenge me. I don't know. I had initially, when I left, I thought I was only going to be gone for like 5 years or something like that at the most. 2 to 5, and then when it got to 10 years, and then I hadn't actually examined my own thoughts about it, like, and I realized, okay, you're not going back. So, you've got to come to terms with the fact that you're probably not going to move back to the United States. But I don't know. Nobody ever said, please come home or something like that. So maybe they don't miss me.
Your mother says as long as you're happy, that was her main concern. So Deborah, you have a question, I think, and then Adrianne, after you, follow up with your question as well.
Okay, thanks. And I don't have it formulated, but how are you different from your friends? So let's say friends you went to high school with, went to college with, they never went abroad, or like, are you in a cohort of folks that everybody's abroad? But if not, then do you have a sense of what made you different to be able to make this move? If you understand what I'm saying, asking.
For me, a lot of people kind of attribute it to the fact that my mom passed away. One of my friends says, everyone whose mom passed away, you go and do these drastic things. But truly, it was the life I wanted to live the whole time. It's just, I didn't see my way through it. I didn't know what was possible. And so at a point where I stopped caring about the possibilities and just decided to do something different, that's when I actually made the step. So I think the difference between me and my friends is just one decision. And so I think lots of us have these desires to do things, but I think the fear holds us back, because fear of, not having, a paycheck that arrives biweekly, or, being away from family, or not being able to get into a romantic relationship, not being able to have children, which none of those things are valid excuses because they're all possible. But I think it's really the fear that prevents people from doing it. And I think the difference between those people and us here is that we've been able to overcome that fear and do it anyway.
Great answer. Anybody else?
That's really good, Nikki. In my case, like my motivation was, well, I won't say purely. In the beginning, it was financial. It was like, oh, I'm going to go abroad for a job. But I was actually inspired to do so because I actually had a few girlfriends from college. After we graduated, they actually had 3 girlfriends who taught in Japan, and they were all there in the same year. So after I had my first job out of college, and I went to visit them. Me and one of my other girlfriends went to visit them in Japan, and while they were teaching there. So that was actually inspired by seeing them do it. So when I was laid off from my job a few years later, I had in the back of my mind, like, oh, there's always a possibility to go abroad and teach English. So, for me, I was grateful because I had that community. Like they were there I was able to ask questions about like living in East Asia prior to moving to South Korea. And, they've been my cheerleaders on this journey because they experienced it. So I came from, that circle of friends, and the friends who, people are always telling me, you're so brave to move abroad. Like people who would never consider doing it, but I was inspired because I had friends who had done it. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, originally. People don't leave there. They stay there forever. When I was 15 years old and we were on a vacation in Florida, I knew I had to leave Cincinnati, Ohio. And I did. Like before I went overseas, I did. And so it's just sort of like an evolution. Like once you leave Ohio, the whole world is open to you. Like you can't stay there forever. I know a lot of people that I went to high school with, they went to MIT, they went to Harvard, they went to Yale, and then they came back to Cincinnati, Ohio. So I wasn't going to be one of those people. So I always knew that I was leaving Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's just a matter of where I ended up at. So here I am in Europe.
Wow, that's great. Adrianne.
Thank you, PJ.
Mm-hmm.
So our celebration this month is for the wonderful, lovely month of March and Women's History Month. As expats, as well as women of color from abroad, do you have some perspective you'd like to provide, or any words of wisdom for someone else seeking to do exactly what you're talking about, living your dream?
Well, I would have to say that, life is very short. So whatever it is you desire to do, whether that's moving abroad or, applying for that promotion or, telling that person you're interested in them, whatever it is, you should do it now. You know, I think we've all kind of seen the demise of people throughout this pandemic and through our lives. And, you know, those people didn't get a second chance, but here you are today with a second chance, you know? So take that chance and do it now, whatever that thing is, just do it. And I promise everything will be okay. Things will work out. When I left, I had nothing together, no potential career, no, you know, entrepreneurial aspirations or anything. And here I am running multiple businesses internationally. Like there's so much, like I wish I could, you know, go into detail, and so much that I've accomplished since I've been abroad. And it's all because I just did it, and I didn't hesitate, and I just, you know, made it happen, and everything else just fell into place. And it will happen for you too. Everything will fall into place if you just take that first step. So I encourage you to just do it now.
Okay, well, I would have to say to that, like, I agree to a certain extent. Like, I don't know that everything is going to be okay, but you know, life isn't always okay. So it doesn't really matter where you are. Like, bad things can happen if you're just sitting in the neighborhood you grew up in. So just do what you want to do what interests you, and you'll definitely be much happier than if you just do what is expected of you, whatever that is. You know, if what is expected is that you stay in a certain town, or that you live in a certain place, or that you have a certain job, or you behave a certain way, and you don't want to do any of that stuff, then you'll be unhappy. So do whatever you want to do. And even if it doesn't all turn out great, you'll be better off that you did it, because life is a journey. It's not a destination. And I know that's like kind of like corny, but it's true that we're all, you know, that everything that we're doing, we're going from place to place, we're seeing things, we're encountering new people, all of that like is a cumulative effect. And one day when you get to the place where you should be, you'll know it, you know? And so you might have to move around to different countries, or you might have an interest to, but just do what you want to do and not what people expect you to do, and everything, your life will be much better.
Absolutely. Nicole?
Yeah, I totally agree with the ladies. You know, honestly, you can't operate in fear. I think so many of us have a fear of the unknown, so we just stay stagnant and we don't go after our dreams. So at the end of the day, it's like the US isn't going anywhere. If all else fails, you pack up your bags, you try to go abroad, and you know, you can always go back. It's not going anywhere, right? Hopefully, you know, knock on wood if I can find some. But yeah, it's not going anywhere. But at least you can say, I gave it a shot, I tried. And you never know. Like, plan to go for a year and he's gone a decade. Like, it's just, sometimes you just have to, you know, step out on faith, and you know, like she said, the journey is, it's all about the journey that you're willing to take. So yeah, and
Wow.
research. Also
Yes,
research.
and research.
Research is important.
Well, Nicole, speaking of faith, ladies, what is your outlook or perspective on religion, or if you practice it in the country, in your adoptive country?
I can't say that well, I'm a Christian woman, but I'm kind of a church snob, so I rarely find a church that I actually like. So I tend to be like, I think they call it like TV Baptist. Online Baptist, or whatever I can find that I actually like. But so I haven't really worshiped locally at all, but I think, you know, there are obviously plenty of options here in Kenya, because it's, you know, a Christian society. And
is it religious persecution at all?
No, there's not. There are two basic religions here. One is Muslim, the other is Christian. So, you can do either of those or something else. There are other religions here too, but those are the most prevalent. But I think, there are many options here in Kenya.
Okay, well, I hate this question, but only only because I was an atheist before I ever came to Germany. And there's plenty of churches here if people are interested. There's all sorts, all types, mosques, synagogues, every, Protestant, Jehovah's Witness, everything you want. It's all here. I just don't participate in any of them.
Terrific. We still love you.
Thank you.
Nikki?
Yeah, in my case, well, I'm in the Middle East, so I'm in Oman, and it's, obviously it's a 95% like mostly Islamic culture. So, and similar, like I'll say I'm spiritual. I'm not very religious per se. Like I do believe in a higher being. But so for me, it's not like an issue like for me not to be able to go to church. I do believe there is like small communities that have services, but you will not see any churches here. So that would be, for somebody who's like very religious or someone who's Christian, that could pose a problem for them, but it's not a problem for me.
Okay, well, thank you.
Could I just add, PJ? I know Adrianne has a question. I lived in Geneva, Switzerland for a total of 5.5 years. And I'm Baptist, but there was an English-speaking Lutheran church that a lot of the Americans went to, and it was so progressive. So I joined that church. So in countries where, so I'm sure in Germany, and obviously it's not an issue in Kenya. Well, I mean, it could be because the services could be held in Kiswahili, but in Germany and Switzerland and so many places, they probably have a English-speaking congregation that if people are interested in, they could find.
Thanks, Deborah. Adrianne, before I turn it over to you, I just wanted to do a time check. So we have about 15 minutes left in the conversation. So a couple things, housekeeping. David's going to put in a link for a post-conference survey. That's number one. And since the conversations have been terrific, I'm sure there are questions that you may actually have after this is over. If the panelists would be willing to share their communications technique or the email in the chat, so those relationships can continue. And it's been very enlightening for me as well. So Adrianne, kick it over to you.
No problem. I saw one more question in the chat. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss it, which was from Dr. Price again, asking about having you visited countries at war with the active conflicts or with extreme poverty. Where you visited in your travels, ladies? Let me say it again. He asked, have you visited countries at war with active conflicts or with extreme poverty? Anybody want to take that one?
I haven't. Everything has been quite peaceful here. However, the only issues that have arisen here are terrorist attacks. So there was one so there's a gym that I went to. We go there every day, same time, 1 o'clock every day. And just so happened I was traveling. I went out of the country. And the day I left, like I would have been at that gym, but the day I left to travel, there was a terrorist attack at that facility. So those are the kinds of things that I've had to deal with. There was one right after that too, which was on the coast, it's about 45 minutes by flight from me. So I think this is a popular hub for terrorists, because Somalia is very close, and you know, they have their issues with the US, and they're not doing it to attack Kenyans, they're doing it to attack the US. So they attack US Air Force Base, they attack places where Americans generally hang out. So that's the only thing that has arisen since I've been abroad.
I don't know that I've necessarily been in a country that was experiencing a terrorist attack, but I worked for the Army during when 9/11 happened, and that was a big change for United States military overseas as far as how they behaved and how open or closed things were to the public and to generally Americans. When I first got here, everything was wide open. And anybody, whether you were an ID card holder or not, could go into any of the facilities or whatever. And then immediately after 9/11, everything kind of shut down. And so I don't know, the closest that I've ever, I don't know, in 2003, I went to, was it 2003 or maybe it was 2004? I think it was 2003. I went to Egypt for vacation, and everybody I know was like freaking out because it was so close to Iraq, but it's like thousands of miles away. People just don't understand geography or distances. It was fine.
Oh, that's a good point, Angela. I live here in the Middle East. I'm in Oman, which is honestly one of the safest countries I've ever been to. And it's just kind of ironic because people are like, oh, you're in the Middle East. You ever worry about terrorist attacks? And I'm like, that doesn't happen here. Like in Oman, they're like, we call it the Switzerland of the Middle East. I actually just read an article saying that they were chosen by the UN to help with some peace talks, some treaties in the region. So I'm very grateful for that. But in my travels, I will say the first time I've ever seen up close like extreme poverty, when I used to teach in South Korea, I had traveled to India for the first time, and I just remember being blown away, like having little kids come up to, there were me and my girlfriends come up to the car and knock on the window begging for food, and I had never experienced it. So yes, I have been to countries of extreme poverty. I do, if I have the opportunity, I do try to give back when I travel to certain places, donations, go to a school, something of that capacity. I'm big on humanitarianism. And I've never been somewhere that's in war or conflict. However, a few years back, traveling back to the US, I stopped in Turkey. And I remember I had like a long layover in the airport, only stayed in the airport. The next day, I land back in the US and I have extreme jet lag. I'm asleep for like 12 hours and wake up to tons and tons of text messages because that was around the time that the airport was like attacked because of the military coup. So I literally just missed it by like a day. So if I hadn't, I could have been like stuck in that airport and who knows what would have happened. So that's the closest call I've ever had in my travels. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. So the chat's moving. We've deposited some information in here. The playlist, Adrianne's fantastic playlist, if you guys want to grab the link for that on Spotify. And I see Angela has posted some stuff in here about Dems Abroad. Also, importantly, votingfromabroad.org is also listed. And the survey is listed as well. Are there any other questions? Oh, there's one. What about healthcare? Is there universal healthcare? Is there pay-as-you-go healthcare? How does that work?
Actually, I have a healthcare for digital nomads. So it's a subscription-based plan, and it's like $40 a month, but it covers me no matter what country I'm in.
Oh, you have, it's called, that's something I might be interested in. Can you put the link in the chat box, please? Or what is it called again? Digital nomads?
Who is the provider for that, Nikki? I'm curious. Like for me, since I work for a university here, my insurance is covered through my employer, but that's only locally. So I always buy travel insurance when I travel to different countries. But that sounded like an interesting plan. I might need that coverage when I get back out here traveling after the pandemic.
Right.
In Germany, we have public and private insurance. So we have basically universal health care. It's not free. I mean, you have to pay monthly, but once you get in, you can pretty much get whatever you want done without ever having to pay anything. It's great.
Awesome.
Great. I have a question. First, I want to really thank our panelists. I'm just so excited. I'm so pumped, but I want to see a show of hands. You know, I haven't cleared this with PJ and Adrian yet, but I think SOAR needs to, let's organize a trip, you know, and we're going to hit Germany, then we're going to go to Kenya, and then we're going to go to Oman. And so I want to see show of hands, who's down for that?
Use your reaction key.
Use your reaction key.
Raise those hands. Right.
And just a procedural housekeeping thing. I guess we have everybody's email who registered, right? So
Mhm.
could we send the chat and the link to the video also afterwards? I don't know if this is a Dave question or what.
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Robinson. This is Dave. Yeah, we can definitely. The chat is saved, and I'll double check to make sure that all the links and the good resources that were shared, we'll save those as well. So yeah, and we have the email. If you registered for this, we have your email, so we will we can send out resources from the talk today, and the link to the YouTube the recording, which we'll put up on YouTube. So yeah.
Thank you, Dave. So on behalf of the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, SOAR, and Deborah Robinson, my host, our three incredible panelists. It was so much fun. Would you join me using your reaction key and giving everyone an applause? There you go. Since they can't see us snapping in the background. And Deborah, I'm going to let you close by thanking our panelists specifically, and it's in your hands.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to again thank everybody. It was kind of short notice. We really appreciate it. It was just so informative. I don't know. I guess we don't have time. If you have a 2-second final word, we wanted to give you a chance. Otherwise, I know we're going to close it out with some more music. But does anyone, Nikki, Nicole, and Angela, any 2-second final word?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I want to encourage and inspire everyone to just start living a life you love and stop just existing. Life is too short not to live today.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me, and this has been really great. I have to agree, do what makes you happy, and your life will be 1,000% better. Don't let anybody hold you down.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, again for having us on this call. I really appreciate it. It was lovely chatting with everyone. And yeah, basically do what makes you happy. You can't live for anyone else but yourself. So just chase your dreams. And that's my advice.
Thank you so much. Hit it, Dave. Take us out.
Thanks, everyone. See you abroad. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.